Hello, 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 community and family. Giving folks a couple seconds to get in, get settled. We continue in this conversation, Civics 101. Listening to a little bit of my older music right now. Civics 101 was born in 2018 as a means to help demystify the confusion and complication of life and time in the way of voting and civics. So it is an honor to partner with Haven this go round in 2020 to talk more about local politics, to talk more about what's happening on the local level for our state, for our city, and for our county. So in just a moment, I will be joined by a beautiful and powerful woman named Liz Sook. I'm super excited to chat with her about Proposition 15 today. Really gonna be fun. Hello, Monifa Dio. Hello, Brainiac Foods. Hello, Eli. Are you in Senegal? Hello from Senegal. Good afternoon, Diaris. That's so wonderful. I can only imagine how it feels to be on the ground right now. Yes. All right, I have a request, and I believe that this is Liz. Hello, Ryan Nicole.
Sorry.
Hello. Oh, there you are.
I was like, which way do I post this?
Were you not able to get logged on for, let me turn this off now. Were you not able to get logged on Haven?
I did not try there, actually.
Okay.
Should I go there?
Well, I think they wanted you to live stream from the Haven handle, but I think we're already on right now. So
okay.
Let's talk and we'll share it to Haven. How about that? How
My
are
apologies.
you today? No
I'm
worries.
well. How about you?
I am fantastic. I am great. Look at that.
21 more days. 21 more days. We got 3 weeks, y'all.
Listen, and these are some important 21 days. Mercury just went into retrograde, y'all. So you better fill out your ballot and get to the box, darling. Man, but we're in this movement together. I don't want to call it a fight. I think that words have so much power. And so I want to say that we're in this movement. We're in this joy together. We're in this opportunity together. We're in this moment together, this time where we get to say we lived through the changing of the world and we had something to do with it.
Yes.
So I'm here for it, and I'm so excited to talk to you. So before we get started, can you tell me and tell everyone who's listening a little bit about yourself and where you're from and what you do and all that good stuff?
My name is Liz Huck. I am from Oakland. I grew up in Deep East, 98th and East 14th. As some of y'all don't know, that International used to be called East 14th.
E14.
E14. So if you grew up here and you heard that, if you know what that means, you know what that means.
Yes.
So I love Oakland. I have always been here, and my heart has always been here. And friends always said, even when I lived abroad in Korea, people were saying like, that's somebody from Oakland living in Korea. So I just love Oakland. I love what I do. I'm the political director at Oakland Rising Action. And I am a mother of 2 young ones, Luna, who is going to be 12 in a few weeks. And then Senna, who's 9.5, who you'll probably hear in the background because she's in class.
Nice. Future voters. I love it.
Yes.
So tell me about what you guys do at Oakland Rising.
So Oakland Rising, there's Oakland Rising and Oakland Rising Action. Oakland Rising is a collaborative of 9 organizations who are based in Oakland and across the Bay. We do work in building political power with Black and Brown folks in the flatlands of Oakland. And we do this by flexing people power. So we do civic engagement work by calling and talking and door knocking to people about what's going on in Oakland around policies and laws and things that that are pertinent to their lives. And then we also align ourselves with like-minded forces. So we're talking to electeds, and we're talking to folks in the community. We're talking both locally and statewide and nationally. So what are all of those places where we can align ourselves? And so this is one of the ways that I'm trying to do that too, is to how do we do this with our folks in the community that are outside of our collaborative, and really be able to talk to the folks of Oakland. And the third piece that we do, which is in line with the other two as well, is building leadership, values-based leadership. So
Yes.
how do we get elected? How do we get people in boards and commissions? How do we get in places of power that are, you know, with folks that are leading with values rather in a transformative way rather than transactional? Because, you know, everybody hears so much about that, right? Like, do this for me, scratch my back, I'll scratch your back kind of stuff. And instead, we want people who are really going to step into leadership in places where it's about transformation and about how do we look at the policies and the ways in which, before we tear down this whole system, in ways in which we can alleviate the pain and trauma of our communities.
Yeah, it sounds like you have been doing your own Civics 101 for quite some time now. And it is so great to speak with you. One of the best things for me about doing this series is that I get to show up completely novice. I get to show up and just be like,
yay,
I don't know. And fortunately, Oakland makes such badasses. You know,
they do. And I really love that that you're giving this opportunity for people to ask that question, right? Because I think one of the places in which we're failing is in our education system, right? Like how we're not telling people about not only what is civics, what is civic engagement, what is your political power, right? What are the ways in which we can mobilize each other and come into community in our power and bring that change. So we do that with Oakland Rising Action too. So with Oakland Rising Action, this is our Oakland Rising sister organization that actually goes out and then actively lobbies for and builds political power by lobbying around measures and propositions that are specific to Oakland as well as the state and to all of our communities. And then we endorse and assist with political campaigns. So maybe working on candidate campaigns. And this is, you know, not part of an organizational collaborative, but like a group, a committee of organizers in the community and that are doing, you know, to have done this work and understand the politics in Oakland and are doing, like they come together and then we make those endorsements, we work on campaigns together, but this is outside of organizational space.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to be available to talk with us today. I've got my, I'll be honest, it's coffee today.
Nice.
Because I couldn't sleep last night. Oh, hey, Pumpkin, cutie. So I'm drinking my coffee and being present with you so that I am ready to vote.
Great.
Next week, I'm gonna go vote next week. So you're with us today and on Thursday, but today we are talking about Proposition 15. So can you give me the game on 15 and tell me what's the deal? Steele, what is it? What's it about? What does it do?
Yeah, so Prop 15 is also known as Schools and Communities First. It's something that has basically been 40 years in the making. In 1978, they passed a proposition called Prop 13. You might have heard that over the years. It gets thrown around often, and it's unfortunate when your number 13 proposition comes up on any ballot post 1978 because it is always associated with that number because the impact has been so magnificent and great, right? Like not in a magnificent in a good way, but magnificent in like it has been expansive in the ways in which has impacted our lives directly. So what I'm going to jump a little bit before that. What was happening prior to 1978 is we saw U.S. interventions, military interventions into many different countries across the world. The Vietnam War, the Korean War. We saw an increase of military occupation and coups in Central and South America, right? That increased migration from the global South to the U.S. And a lot of those people landed in California. This also coincided with the civil rights movement and a Black migration from the South, right? So we saw a lot of folks, and a lot of folks that are from Oakland really came off of that wave as well, right? So we saw after World War II ended, the GI Bill came in, and most of Deep East Oakland, and Oakland is that tract housing to house GIs returning from World War II. They came in, they saw this influx of immigrants, of people of color, from Black folks from the South, and they were like, peace, we're done. We don't want to do this. We don't want to live amongst these people anymore. So then we saw
So you're speaking of white flight.
Exactly.
Okay.
So we saw white flight and the creation of suburbia, right? So we
Yes.
have Concord and Walnut Creek and Fremont and all of those areas outside of Oakland and outside of our major cities where white folks were fleeing to. So corporations wanting to do what they do, they magnify the racism and the fear. So using white fear, using people wanting to and distrust in the government and their ability to do the job well, that they wanted to change the tax structure. So they moved from having property, both residential and commercial property, to be assessed at a local level and the tax to be collected at a local level, that it goes up to the state, and the state does that collection and assessment. Not only that, it froze the property value assessment at 1978 rates. So if you own big tracts of land, or if you own a home, the only time that that assessment changes when it's sold. So the new owner of the land or of the property then gets to say, this is the assessed value, and then they're taxed on that value for the time that they own it.
So let's stop there for a second. When we did Civics 101 in 2018, and we were going over, you know, what the different jobs are in the government, like, you know, I mean, I get real basic with Civics 101 because I don't just assume that people know anything, you know, and there's so much that I don't know, and I consider myself somewhat engaged, you know. So one of the things that came up was the role of the county assessor. And I remember talking to Tanya and completely flipping out. I was so mad because I didn't know what the county assessor did, and I didn't understand the impact that it was having on my life and that it had had for generations. And so to understand that as a result of white fear, white supremacy, and white flight, right? All the same thing. Our tax dollars, so hardworking American people, immigrants, people of color in communities like the community I grew up in, part of the reason our schools and so forth have been for shit and our roads have been for shit has been because the assessments froze in 1978.
Basically.
Before I was born, man.
I know, exactly. So this is so it's, you know, it's been beneficial to homeowners, right? It has been beneficial to homeowners, but who's actually benefited the most from this is actually corporations. And as we already know, Trump only paid $750. We know that Amazon, we know that Chevron, we know that all these corporations aren't paying taxes neither locally or federally, right? And this is one of the ways that they're escaping that, right? And so this is like, so we want to ensure that folks understand that Prop 15, Schools and Communities First, is not going after residential property, right? A lot of the ads that are out there are saying that they're going after homeowners, that we're going to go after homeowners next. And that's not true, because it's actually written into the measure that this is all about commercial property and does not touch residential property.
So just so that I'm understanding clearly, the so say for instance, you're in Deep East Oakland, right?
Mm-hmm.
The tax assessment on like, what is that, Target that's down there
Yeah.
or whatever, that was
Walmart, the one
Walmart
that's
or
closed.
whatever, right?
Yeah.
All of those,
Mm-hmm.
they would finally just start paying taxes, is what you're saying?
They would be their the value of the property would get reassessed, and then they
Yes.
would get taxed at the current value of that assessment,
Which would
right?
obviously go up because
the value of property has gone up.
in 43
Yes.
years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
I mean,
exactly.
that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yes, and so statewide, if we did this assessment statewide, and actually this proposition was written by community folks on the ground,
Mm-hmm.
wasn't lobbyists, it wasn't corporations. These are like folks across the state have been working on this for 40 years, right? They came together and wrote this. They went out and heard from folks, small businesses, homeowners, from residential homeowners, like from all of these folks. They heard from folks, and we heard back from folks about how this would be best done. So just be really clear, does not go to residential.
Why did it take so long?
Because
why did it take so long?
I mean, you already seen what's happening with this election, how much money corporations have been pouring into state, to state measures like Prop 22 or to Prop 15. Like the opposition to this has been 40 years, because who would benefit the most? Who benefits the most would lose the most, or so they think, right? So corporations, when they wrote this this proposition, we thought it would be like $10 billion annually. We sent it to the state after, before we could start collecting signatures to get it on the ballot. That the state actually told us that what it would actually be would be $12 billion annually.
That we would
gain, right?
Okay.
Yeah, we would gain $12 billion. So imagine, what's $12 billion? That's $715 million to Alameda County alone. Yeah, $715 million annually. So 40% of that money is allocated specifically to education. It can't be touched. It's just like cut, doom, here, it goes to you all.
Look
this goes
at
to
what
education.
An idea. What a concept.
Thank you. Yeah, there's no algorithms, there's nothing. It's just like, this is the 40%, it's going to this county, you're going to get this money. The other 60% is where then our communities really have to engage, right? Because we know, I know, and folks really need to know, is that your vote is never the end all be all.
That's the beginning.
Thank you.
It's
so
like
you, exactly. You got my number now, right? Hit me up. Let's meet up.
Yeah.
Stop the texting.
We can be
right?
friends.
Yeah. Let's just stop texting. Let's meet up, right?
Yes.
It's like, okay, so we get this in, we get the 60% of that money coming in to Alameda County, and then we go and we have to fight for it, because who's at the county level that we need to be fighting for this money? The sheriff, who makes about 40% of the Alameda County budget, right? They just got $318 million during COVID. So
wait. I mean, that's okay. Hold on, because we gotta rewind. So let's rewind. Okay. So
yes, 318 million.
So they just got 318 million. We can't figure out how to like fix the potholes and
we do. How that happens is we get taxed more. So the bond measures, the regressive tax, the sales tax, all of those things are a result of this, right? So because of Prop 13 from 1978, right? We went from not only from being 7th in the nation in per capita spending, right? Per student spending in the country, to 47th. We also then saw a massive decline in infrastructure, in our parks, in our libraries, in our fire departments, like in our healthcare systems. This is why we're in the situation we are now with COVID, right?
Yeah. And
what did we see an increase of? Prison spending, police spending. So what does that create?
How does this make any sense. And I think
I know.
even though, I mean, like, I don't know, just on a human to human level, it's completely not off the topic, but I just don't understand how corporations are made up of humans. How is it that the humans that make up the corporations look at this and think that it's acceptable? Like, long money, you're still paying for loss prevention if you own a big corporation in the hood. Ask Walmart, right? Like, constantly dealing with that. Like, you're spending money, we're all spending money in other ways to protect ourselves from the impacts of poverty. Like,
yeah, but for them, that actual loss is not a loss, right? Because their overall profits are huge because they are not paying taxes, right? So the reason why Walmart this is part of their business plan, is actually to buy property or to own land, build Walmart, drop all their prices, push out all the mom and pops, right? And then close shop. That's what happened here with Walmart off of Hagenberger.
And then they own the land.
And then they own the land. And for them, it's actually a benefit. So the cost for them,
the value is.
Thank you. So the value goes up, but they don't have to pay taxes on it. So that's why in Deep East Oakland, we have, and Oakland in general, we have so many vacant lots.
Yeah.
Do you know how who benefits from this? Golf courses. Where you only have like a small group of people, really, really rich people who pay membership to get into these golf courses, they benefit from this. So if we have, for example, we have this situation where, Walmart is sitting there.
So white supremacy wins again, is what you're saying?
Basically. And this is one of the ways in which we are going to be able to make a dent in bringing that money back into our communities, right? That hardworking folks really are, we want to give to our people. We want to feed into our people. We want to give an education that we can be proud of, right? Like, it's laughable when I think about like how uneducated our children are.
Good God.
Right? And how much they don't really know. And so like when I think about like my kids in my kids' school, I feel really privileged. I work really, really hard, but I'm also been afforded, because I'm Asian, I've been afforded certain privileges, right? I've been afforded a status with my citizenship. I've been afforded a status just for being born in this country, right? That my kids have access to certain things, and I feel very privileged and lucky for that. But I know that the disparity between what my children have and what other children have in their school system is ridiculous, right? Like, to think that some kids don't have Wi-Fi. So how are they supposed to get online right now? Right? Not only that, like,
they don't have devices. They don't have
devices. And then, all of the ways in which I think about, like, I get to send my kids with, we have rice and eggs every morning, right? Like that, some kids have to go to school and get a school lunch because there's no food at home. There's no groceries at home. So what does that mean for our school system? What does that mean for our communities when we're sending kids into an educational system that is barely providing for them, right? And so I want to be, and not only providing for them, but providing for their teachers, providing for the janitors, providing for all of the people, right?
The whole ecosystem.
The whole ecosystem. And so that this is one of the ways in which we're going to say, like, let's break the school to prison pipeline. Let's break the pipeline from our communities to prisons. Let's break that.
Okay, so just so that everybody really understands the building blocks of how this measure has anything at all to do with breaking the school to prison pipeline. Like, I understand, because it creates and perpetuates, maintains poverty in a community. And then it means that there's not enough money that's going into our education systems, therefore supporting our teachers and supporting our families, right? So people can't afford to feed their kids. Their kids go to school, they're distracted. We tell them that they've got ADD and give them drugs. Then we send them to the school to prison pipeline. Like, am I about right?
Exactly.
Okay.
And then, and our system is set up that if you don't participate in education and you aren't successful at education, the educational system. I'm going to separate that from being educated because that's very different, right?
Very different.
Like, because, you know, to be really honest, even I send my kids to public school, I tell their teachers every year that I actually don't think they're learning much at school. That what I teach them at home is probably more useful for them when they're out in the world, right? So like being educated and then going through being successful in the education system is different. Without that success in the education system, you can't get jobs. You can't, you know, move out in the world. You can't go to places that give more access, right? And so, for example, you know, like if you're stuck and you are homeless, right? Because of gentrification, and 82% of those who are homeless in Alameda County were residents in Alameda County, right?
Say that again. Say that again. So many people feel like, oh, someone was, and they came here. No.
82% of people who are homeless in Alameda County were previously residents of Alameda County. So this means that you know, how gentrification pushed people out onto the street. So then what happens? You don't have an address. You can't, how do you send your kids to school if you don't have an address? How do you send services? You can't get services. You can't even get bathrooms. You can't get running water. You can't get electricity. You can't even vote, right? So the disenfranchisement of our people, both poor and 60% of those who are living unhoused on our streets are Black folks, right? It's our Black neighbors.
Say that part again.
60% of those who are unhoused in Oakland are our Black brothers and sisters. So this is critical, right? So if we're talking about how we could increase services, how we could take this $12 billion, pour it into our communities, pour it into services that will bring housing for all, be able to bring infrastructure so that people can get to the places that they need to get to, that people are given the services that they need, like healthcare services, right? Like, how do we do all of these things without funding? And so once you have people who are housed, who are fed, who are healthy, they can then begin to engage in going to school, being part of that system that then, right, feeds into the larger system. And I think that that's a key, right? Right now, in order to alleviate the ills and pains and the traumas that our communities are faced with, we need to engage this system. We can't blindly be like, peace, I think the system sucks, so I'm not going to do this, right? And so we need to be able to do that as we're subversing and being able to tear it down and build up systems that really work for us.
Absolutely. I think the need to be civically engaged, to be present to a conversation like this. Like if you're just joining, we're talking about Prop 15, and we're talking about it as it relates to Proposition 13 and the impact that had on a whole generation and then some, right? Because like, I guess we define generations by, you know, somewhere between 20 and 30 years. We're talking about something that happened in 1978 that has impacted, and if you're from East Oakland, where both of us are from, I'm from 66th and Avenal. Hey. So like, if you are from East Oakland, which is a perfect slice of being able to really, really see it, you know, I remember the impact, and I often talk about when crack hit.
Yes.
And that was like maybe the linchpin, but there's so many other things, right? And and to not be civically engaged because we're so busy trying to survive. So no shade, right? Like no shade on all of us who are so busy just trying to survive that taking the time at your lunch hour to have this conversation for some is a privilege and a luxury.
Totally.
So like, you know, with all of the love and respect, but we have to find ways to be consistently more engaged in our civics because these things are happening. These decisions are happening right in our own backyard that mean that our schools are not being well funded. It means that our streets are not being well taken care of. And when home is out of order, right? Like, I've been a food justice activist for years, and one of the big things that comes up is around childhood poverty, right? And how if you're not eating food and then you go to school, you can't learn. So we're talking about generations upon generations, and the psycho-spiritual impact, right, is such that now the next generation comes along and maybe there are different opportunities, but here's a whole generation of people who didn't know that it was possible. So they're not talking to you or growing with us in a way that they believe that they belong in the community, right?
Yeah, and this is one of the things I think that what I love about Oakland, and I think what has drawn people to Oakland, right, is the resiliency and hope that this city gives people, right? Like the ways in which that Black folks from the South were able to move to Oakland, right, and build a life and build into like the economy, the Black economy that once was here at the time when they first moved here. And that why deep East Oakland hasn't been yet so affected by gentrification in the ways that other parts of the city has, right, is because of that building and that hope that people really built on, right? And in the ways in which, you know, we had industry, we had all of these things and jobs that were here and available to people. And that then people like the, you know, folks from our legacy of the Black Panther Party and our legacy of the Brown Berets and the, you know, and the Yellow Peril and all of the movement work that people had been doing here, that so many of our services and the way we think about how we take care of each other in community came from movement building.
Come on, tell them.
Right? Like that's real. Like, you know, all the ways and we think about mutual aid now, that ain't new. That's how our community and our people, that's how we live. Been from the get, right? From the beginning. Like we brought that with us. Immigrants brought that with us. Native people have been living their entire existence with this, right? Right? And Black folks have been fighting and resisting from the moment that they were brought here, right? So like this is, and I'll say before that too, right? Like, so that this is really about like, how are we thinking about the ways in which not just that you've got to use every tool that you can to build this, right? To build the society and the structure by which you really want to live, that really takes care of all of us, right? So I used to be really cynical before even, you know, I'd say even 6 or 8 months, a year into the work that I've been doing now, I was like, I don't know about this democracy, right? And then I had an undocumented friend say to me, don't give me that bullshit, Liz.
You got to show up.
You got to show up. I was like, all right, you are so right. Thank you for telling me that. And now I'm going to do my job. I'm going to do my work. I'm going to do what I need to do to be able to make sure that we are exactly, Ryan. How are we? This is our home. How do we take care of our own? How do we take care of our people? And so at the same time, you know, do all the things we're doing, right? Like take, you know, create pods and take care of each other and check on your friend and make sure they have food to eat and check on your neighbor.
Registered to vote.
Register to vote, and that they vote and to vote early, right? Because that's the more critical piece, because it's, you know, 21 days till the election, but that's 21 days that you have to get your ballot in and to drop it off.
I can be overwhelmed sometimes when I look at what's in front of us. You know, like I can look at it and be like, wait, how did this slip past me? And I often feel that way. And it makes me sad because in my family, I'm the do-gooder one that knows all of the stuff that's going on in the community,
Right.
right? Like, right? Like, I'm sure you're probably that person in the family too, right? So like, I'm the one in my family where my family's like, Jen said we have to recycle or something, so we got to recycle, you know, that one, right?
I love it. I
I
love
don't
it.
think Jen's eating meat now, like, you know, that one, right? And so, so when I stroll up on something that I can see has impacted my life,
Right.
has impacted my family, has impacted my community, it is so easy
Right.
to feel like, I don't know about this democracy. I don't
Right.
know if this is for me. It's all stacked against me. It's not, they're not here for me. The strategy to dismantle my community is so strong. It's so easy to get caught up in that thought process.
Very true.
But that would be giving the win to the opposition. That's giving the win to white supremacy. That's giving the win to this thing that no one wants, not even
Yes.
white folks. Right? Keep it funky. Like,
Right.
it's not serving anyone
No.
to create this level of division and separation. It never has, and it never will, really, not truly in the long run. So it makes me feel powerful to have the time to talk to you, because you help to demystify something that I can point at in my life for real.
Yeah.
How that has impacted my life, how Proposition 13 has impacted the entirety, my whole life it's impacted. And so every person that grew up with me.
Can I give you one very, very clear example that I know everybody in Oakland can understand, right?
Yes.
So since 1978, we saw a decrease in this assessment of the value of property across California. And then that money goes to schools and to our community services, like our infrastructure and critical services and social services, right? So we saw this, like, basically this stagnation. So while that money is not increasing, what's happening at the same time is inflation.
Yeah.
Right? But we still have this stagnation. So I had this friend who used to work for Public Works in Oakland, and they haven't seen an increase in their budget since the 1980s. So what does that mean? That means we have no trash pickup on our streets. We have potholes, right? We have all of these infrastructure things that just haven't been able to increase because we're not collecting taxes enough to take care of our people. So then what happens? You compound the issue because there's not enough people to get paid to pick up our trash off our corners, to sweep our streets, to clean up after it. And then what do people do? They're like, shit, no one's taking care of this. Why do I got to take care of it? And then people outside of our city are like, you know what we need to do is we need to go drop our sofa right there on that corner. Right? We have this massive problem with garbage. And I'm sure you remember, I remember growing up here, I have never seen Oakland as dirty as I've seen it.
Currently.
Never. Even through the crack epidemic, I never saw Oakland so dirty in my life. Like, it saddens me because this is a critical place. Like, if we were collecting taxes on the wealthy, on corporations, our streets would be clean. Like, it's not that much to pay another team, hire another team to help clean up shit.
But instead we use slave labor.
And then what do? You turn around and say, you know why Oakland is dirty? Because Black people are dirty. Because immigrants don't know how to take care of their communities. Because of this. And so you turn it on racism and you turn the fear up so that then you're not thinking about who we should be talking about is the corporations who are benefiting off of this. Instead, we're going to point our finger and then say not only scapegoat, but that also to basically gaslight our people, saying you're the problem. You're the reason why we have these issues in our communities, when clearly no one's taking care of these streets for us, right? Hire me, I'll do that.
Yeah.
I know there's some people that need some jobs, right? We got unemployment issues. So like if we were pouring this funds into the community rather than to places then where we would, our funding is to the police, right? So we're
To
starting
create
to
more
see
terror and more trauma and more,
exactly.
you know what I mean? Like, it's still funny to me that anyone thinks that police create safety. Like, I mean, just after, if you know anything about the history of police, if you know how they came to be, you know these jokers are not for safety. They, you know,
No,
you want
they're for
police.
policing. There's a difference. Those are two very different words.
Yeah,
Safety and policing
policing
are
are not the
two,
same.
they are not the same thing. And
Yeah.
so I think it's critical for us to see that this is and you know, this, I think this is Prop 13 and Prop 15 are going to be those critical pivotal points
Mm.
in our history, right? Like, you know, Clinton's, like, you know, the Reagan's war on drugs, Clinton's like thing, war on crime, you know, like all of these things on welfare, like all of these things, those were critical points in history,
Yeah.
right? That we could point to and say, this is what happened at that moment. Prop 13 is one of those right? Like that is a critical point. And then Prop 15 is going to be that changing point on the other direction. There's a lot of propositions and measures that are out there that even, so that's why, you know, corporations, that's why, you know, anti-tax people are really like generally white, older, rich white folks are saying why this is so detrimental is because it's going to shift things on an incredible scale.
Okay, so if I could get you to very quickly, because now, girl, we done talked, and I'm like, oh my goodness, we're 15 minutes over.
Oh, really? I didn't even notice.
This is what you get when you get a couple girls from the town talking about
right
where we grew up and what needs to change, you know what I mean?
Right.
And these conversations are so important. And so if you're watching right now, share this with people so that they can learn more about civics, but also have these conversations with your family and friends. Sit down, open up that ballot book. I know that Oakland Rising Action, I know that there's so many voter guides. So you've got all of the support that you need, but this needs to be more in the conversation than what's happening on the Real Housewives of the such and such and basketball boopty such and all the things and so forth and so on. Who won the championship? Don't give a good goddamn if we don't have a really good system in order, right? Like it doesn't matter.
Yes,
You know,
exactly.
so quickly, if you can tell me what Proposition 15 is and what we supposed to do. Go.
Prop 15 is a tax that will reassess property values for commercial property for businesses that make over $3 million a year. So 92% of our corporations, or 92% of that $12 billion that we would gain annually as a result of this assessment and taxation would come from just the tiny little 10% of corporations out of the pockets of our corporations. So that includes Disney, that includes Chevron, that includes Walmart, that these corporations, and Trump, let's just be really clear about that one. And so I just realized that maybe I wasn't supposed to say that, but like, just saying as somebody who owns corporations, right? Like that they are benefiting from this. And so if we pass Prop 15, it will reassess commercial property tax, bring $12 billion annually to our states that will go directly to education and to our communities. And I'm obviously saying vote yes on Prop 15, but you have a choice to make on what that looks like. So go out there and do your research and learn a little bit more about it, learn about the ways in which that you can make a decision about how to vote on Prop 15 and then all the other ballot measures. So Oakland Rising has a voter guide on ballot measures. You can go to Oakland Rising Action, oaklandrising.org, You can go to our voter guide to learn about any of the candidates that we're endorsing at oaklandrisingaction.org. And we're saying folks need to get out and vote early, and you know, participate in that conversation with your family and friends.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for taking this time, for educating us and inspiring us. And if you needed a reason to get civically engaged, if you needed a reason, oh Lord, this conversation today should have done it for you. Just that one bit of game and the impact that it has had on my life alone reminds me how important it is to, you know, pay attention and to be in this movement with one another. So thank you so much for taking the
Thank
time,
you.
Liz. And as usual, guys, if you have a question, something that we did not go over, please feel free to direct message me. Anything that I can't answer, and chances are, if it's a detail, I'm not going to be able to answer it. I'm going to ask Liz. And we'll pass it along and make sure that the right folks get it. Make sure that you follow Haven. It's _1 Haven _. It is a space that my sister Ryan Nicole has created that is about looking at the circumstances of housing justice for us. So please join that movement as well. And of course, continue to follow me if you are not following me currently, Aquarius Johns, and go over to the F.U.N Manifesto. Civics 101 is born from the F.U.N Manifesto. So please go to the funmanifesto.com and become a part of that community as well. Liz, I look forward to seeing you on Thursday for another fire conversation.
Woo!
Make civics hot and sexy like Oakland girls.
Hey.
All right, you guys have a beautiful day. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you.
Peace.